For all of you out there who love music and record collecting, but aren't greatly aware of the musical history lessons behind what they listen to, this video is going to be very informative to you, hopefully. And for those who already know, I apologize for boring you by preaching to the converted. But I'm going to be talking to you about something called black rock today. Now, aside from the racial implications, there's an interesting story behind this. The first question I ever had about the black rock genre to begin with when I first heard about it from Ricky Vincent's book, Funk, was that why should it be called black rock? I mean, rock and roll was started by black people like jump blues musicians like Louis Jordan and Ike Turner. Yeah, that Ike Turner did amazing things to influence the genre and should really be known more for that, just for Rocket 88 alone. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, you name it. Pre-Elvis. All these people came together to make rock and roll, so why should they call it black rock? Well, here's a little history lesson. In 1958, a record came out of the VJ label in Chicago called Your Precious Love by The Impressions, featuring a lead singer called Jerry Butler. And basically, it was part of the beginning of a trend, and there were unlikely number of songs before it that did this, along with another person who probably started the whole ball game rolling, Ray Charles, when he took an old gospel song, rewrote it with secular lyrics, and called it I Got a Woman. There was a fusion of the secular and the spiritual, gospel with pop, and it became soul music, as we know it now, and it's gone on through soul, funk, so on and so forth. The original name for rock and roll as it was rhythm and blues, but there was a DJ named Alan Freed who thought that name wouldn't be politically correct at that time because of the racial standards in certain parts of America, so he decided to call it rock and roll, which I guess was jive talk for sex. Anyway, after that, most black artists, singers, songwriters, musicians, all generally work to advance this gospel-oriented genre called soul. It began with ballads and the tempo raised up as time went on. But there were a number of black artists over the years that just basically wanted to rock out. And that's what I wanted to reflect to you today. And I wanted to thank the good people over at Dr. Records in Bangor for providing me with these first two albums. And I've been looking for these for quite some time. The Busboys are an example of a group of black people that actually wanted to continue rocking and making rock and roll music. And this album is called Minimum Wage Rock and Roll. I love that cover. And the kind of rock and roll they did was very much in the league of what a Little Richard or an Ike Turner would have done. Very much a return to that piano and sax-driven kind of sound. In the 80s, there was a conscientious return to traditional values by some you could say mildly racist politicians, so I guess they were just giving it back in their own way. Here are the Busboys right here. Actually, I believe there was one Caucasian member. The lyrics to all the songs. This I also found at Dr. Records. They're in the next album called American Worker from 1982. An even better picture of the members on the back. This has no label, just the standard Arista label, no insert. It's a German import. American Workers and Damn Proud of It. I can see what they must have thought of Reaganomics. Okay. Now, this album I got at the WMEB vinyl giveaway in '94, which a lot of my records come from. It's available on CD now, but for years this was definitely a grail in my collection. What happened was, when Nona Hendryx, who was in LaBelle of Lady Marmalade fame, when LaBelle broke up, Nona Hendryx decided that she wanted to make a hard rock album, and she did this. She actually did a cover of Winning on this album, and it was released on Epic Records. Epic did not know what to do with a heavy Tina Turner-like voiced black woman singing rock and roll. It just wasn't at all politically correct at the time. I should say it, racially correct. But Nona Hendryx broke barriers down for black women in rock that honestly really hasn't been thoroughly explored by a lot of people off of indie labels, but this is definitely a really powerful hard-rocking album. Jimmy, The Cry of Love. This came out after Hendrix died. There's some great pictures of man inside. All Jimi Hendrix collectors know this album really well. It's on Track Record label. There's the back. This has been these songs, Easy Rider, Freedom, Nightbird Flying, and Astro Man and Angel. They've been, you know, reappropriated so many times on so many different collections, but I always like this album because I kind of like the cover, frankly. It's from 1971, I believe. And speaking of Hendrix, Buddy Miles was in Hendrix's last band, the Band of Gypsies, and he's part of that too. There was also a movement called Psychedelic Soul, which kind of was an offshoot or part of that black rock sound with, you know, Isaac Hayes and Norman Whitfield getting in on that. A lot of fuzzed out guitar, electric sitar kind of sounds. I love the inside of this cover. He also played with Carlos Santana around this period too. The inside of the liner notes on Mercury Records. Chuck Berry. I got this album on a free bin. It's not really in good shape, but he was pretty much the king of rock and roll out of Chicago anyway. I mean, he's Chuck Berry. You know, Maybelline, Little Queenie, Sweet Little 16, rock and roll music. What more do you need to know? He's Chuck Berry. Live on stage. Chess LP. 1480. Okay, now this is my first of the genre profile for black rock. I actually have a number of albums in this style, but I wanted to deviate a little bit and talk about this because, you know, aside from Mother's Finest, and who's a band I actually don't have represented here, and will probably eventually show up in another once I find some of their vinyl, a lot of artists really haven't gone the black rock route. Save for Andre Simone from Prince's band's recent comeback album, and Darius Rucker of Hootie and the Blowfish. It's not all that common in a scene, and there's been this talk about this black punk band, I believe they're called Death recently, so I thought it was a good time to talk about the black rock movement, the post-rhythm and blues, first-generation rock and roll black artists who wanted to rock out. And I want to dedicate this again to Dr. Records, WMEB in Orono, my friend Henry Hopkins, Scott Galland from Scotty's Record Shop on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel, as I always say, and enjoy your music, and I'll see you next time.